Chosen one, listen carefully. This message feels as though it fought its way to you, not once, not twice, but 3 different times. It seemed like it might never be heard, and yet somehow it still found you. So do not brush this moment aside. If these words reached you today, many believers would say that is not random. It may be one of those moments that carries more weight than it first appears to. Something in the atmosphere around your life may already feel different. You may sense that a long season is beginning to shift. The prayers you whispered in private, the hopes you carried quietly, the dreams you almost talked yourself out of believing in, all of it may be closer than you think. For some, this kind of moment feels like divine interruption. For others, it feels like a spiritual awakening. Either way, it does not feel ordinary. It feels personal. It feels targeted. It feels like heaven is trying to get your attention. So before we go any further, pause for a second. Breathe. Quiet the noise around you. Let your heart settle. Do not rush through this as background sound. Let yourself really hear it. If your spirit has been restless lately, if something in you has been saying that change is near, then stay with this message all the way through. If you feel resistance, uncertainty, or discomfort, that may be exactly why you need to hear it, because sometimes the truth that shakes you is the same truth that starts freeing you. This is not meant to be just another inspiring speech. It is meant to land deeper than that. Many people pass through messages every day and feel nothing. But every now and then, one arrives that feels as though it was written with your season in mind. That is what this is meant to be. A wake-up call, a line in the sand, a reminder that the life in front of you may not look the same for much longer. Some would describe this as a final spiritual alert, a message that kept getting interrupted, resisted, delayed, yet would not stay buried. Something about it insisted on being heard, and now, in spite of the noise, the setbacks, and the strange delays, it has reached your hands. If you are hearing it now, many faith-filled people would say you were not overlooked. You were meant to encounter it at this exact point in your journey. We are living in a time when many people feel an unusual stirring, as if the line between the visible and invisible has grown thinner. Some dismiss that feeling. Others recognize it immediately. They sense that something is shifting under the surface. They feel that old structures are breaking, old delays are losing their grip, and a different kind of clarity is beginning to rise. If that has been your experience, then do not ignore it. This may be one of those moments when the Spirit speaks louder than circumstances. What you may have felt recently, that restlessness, that pressure, that sense that something is coming, may not be panic at all. It may be awakening. It may be the signal that your season of waiting is reaching its limit. It may be the inner nudge that says, not someday, not eventually, but now. And when that signal comes, it often does not arrive gently. It comes with urgency. It comes with movement. It comes with the feeling that what once seemed distant is suddenly close enough to touch. This is bigger than a mood shift. For many believers, this is the kind of turning point that changes pace, perspective, and direction all at once. Things that felt stuck may begin to move. What used to take years may start unfolding in far less time. Doors that would not budge may begin to open. Relationships, ideas, and opportunities may start aligning with surprising speed. It can feel as if heaven is accelerating what has been waiting for the right time. And with that comes a warning, not one meant to produce fear, but one meant to produce readiness. If you have felt that something major is about to break open, you are not alone. Many people of faith describe this kind of season as a time when preparation gives way to assignment. The waiting room starts emptying. The training period starts ending. What was hidden starts moving into the open. And those who are spiritually asleep often miss the significance of the moment, because they explain everything away as coincidence. But those who have been paying attention often sense it differently. They feel it before they can fully explain it. They know something is shifting, even if they do not yet have language for it. That does not make them dramatic. It means they are discerning. Sometimes prophecy is not comfortable because it confronts illusions. It exposes stagnation. It tears down the stories you told yourself to survive a smaller season. It asks whether you are truly ready to become the person you have been praying to become. Some people may witness coming disruptions and call them random. Others may interpret them through a spiritual lens. Strange patterns, sudden exposure, unusual developments in technology, disturbances in systems people assumed were stable, changes in the natural world that feel symbolic as much as physical. Whether literal or metaphorical, many would say these moments can act like echoes, signs that one chapter is closing and another is opening. For those with faith, the message is this: do not wait for every headline to validate what your spirit already feels. If you have been asking for a sign, pay attention to what is waking up inside you. Sometimes the first confirmation is not external at all. It is internal. It is the sudden awareness that you are no longer able to live half awake. It is the realization that old distractions are losing power. It is the sense that heaven is calling you to attention. Maybe that is why you have felt disconnected lately. Maybe that is why certain spaces no longer fit. Maybe that is why what once entertained you now leaves you empty. You are not necessarily losing yourself. You may be outgrowing a frequency you were never meant to stay in forever. What confuses other people may actually be confirming your calling. What they dismiss may be exactly what sharpens your discernment. Many believers talk about moments when the physical world seems to reflect deeper spiritual movement. Systems fail. Signals drop. News cycles become strange. People feel unsettled without knowing why. Whether you take that literally or symbolically, the point remains the same. Do not let the noise make you afraid. Let it make you attentive. Let it remind you that not everything important is visible at first glance. The spiritual realm is not silent, even when your life has felt quiet. There may be more movement around your future than you can currently see. For a long time, it may have felt like your prayers hit the ceiling and fell back down. It may have felt like heaven was far away, as if all your words disappeared into stillness. But what felt like silence may not have been rejection. It may have been construction. It may have been a hidden season where foundations were being laid that you could not yet understand. The alignment happening now may not only be spiritual in the abstract. It may be deeply personal. Relationships may be shifting. Priorities may be reordering themselves. Your emotions, your finances, your assignments, your sense of identity, all of it may be getting rearranged into a pattern that makes more sense later than it does right now. That is often how divine alignment feels in real time. Less like comfort, more like reordering. You are not abandoned in your isolation. You may have been trained there. The distance, the quiet, the unanswered questions, the painful separations, the nights when nothing made sense, none of it was necessarily pointless. Many people discover later that what felt like loss was actually preparation. What felt like being removed was actually being refined. What felt like emptiness was creating space for a deeper kind of clarity. And as reconnection begins, you may start seeing people more clearly than ever before. You may recognize who belongs to your destiny and who only belonged to your development. Those are not the same. Some people were sent to shape you. Others are meant to walk with you. Some were part of the lesson. Others are part of the legacy. Discernment helps you tell the difference. That is why your spiritual sensitivity matters in this season. Let this be clear. This is not a message about escape. It is not a message about disappearing from the world. It is not about being removed from ordinary life. It is about being raised within it. You will still walk among people, still work, still build, still speak, still live your life. But something about the authority you carry may be different. The change may begin in the unseen, and then slowly become obvious in the visible. People may notice that your posture has changed. They may ask what happened to you. They may wonder why you no longer sound uncertain, why you no longer bend so easily, why you no longer chase what once controlled you. The answer may be simple. You were not taken out. You were lifted up. You were not rescued from purpose. You were strengthened for it. This kind of elevation often begins inwardly before it shows up outwardly. It starts in the soul before it reaches the platform. It forms in private before it appears in public. So if you have ever felt overlooked, underestimated, forgotten, or hidden in plain sight, pay attention. This next movement may be especially meaningful for you. Heaven often calls forward the ones the world ignored. For years, you may have loved quietly, served quietly, endured quietly. You may have stayed faithful in rooms where no one noticed. You may have carried burdens without applause and obeyed in places where there was no visible reward. But hidden faithfulness is never truly unseen. Many believers hold firmly to the idea that what was done in secret still matters in heaven, and that the right time reveals what human eyes missed. That is why sudden recognition can arrive in seasons like this, not because you manipulated your way forward, not because you performed for attention, but because faithfulness has a way of reaching its own appointed hour. What looked like obscurity may become preparation for influence. What looked like delay may become positioning. What looked like being passed over may become protection until the right door appears. And this next chapter may not only involve affirmation, it may involve resources. Spiritual life is not only about feelings. It also touches stewardship, influence, provision, and responsibility. Some people are entering seasons where new ideas come quickly, where unusual opportunities appear, where practical provision begins to meet spiritual calling, not for vanity, not for spectacle, but for purpose. If you have been scraping by, trying to remain faithful, while carrying constant lack, this message may strike a deep nerve. Many believers would say that God does not bless only to display abundance. He often provides in order to empower assignment. Provision supports purpose. Resources back responsibility. What comes into your hand is meant to be handled with wisdom, integrity, and generosity. That is why fresh ideas may start finding you. Unexpected openings may begin appearing. Strategic people may step into your path. You may notice solutions, business ideas, creative direction, or new forms of impact arriving in ways that feel almost sudden. The message here is not greed. It is stewardship. The point is not luxury for its own sake. The point is being equipped for what you were called to build. Along with provision may come a stronger sense of authority, the confidence to lead, the courage to speak, the wisdom to build, the ability to stop bowing to fear and begin responding from conviction. Some would say this is heaven handing back keys that were lost in previous seasons. Keys to influence, keys to strategy, keys to areas where you once felt powerless. But this is also why distraction is dangerous right now. This is not the time to sleepwalk through your own calling. It is not the season to stay spiritually dull, emotionally numb, or half-committed. If the call comes with urgency, your preparation cannot wait until after the moment passes. It has to happen now. This is your activation window. Think about the image of the lamps that had to stay filled with oil. The point was not panic. The point was readiness. Keep your inner life tended. Keep your heart awake. Keep your conscience clear. Keep your spirit responsive. Because major moments rarely arrive with a formal invitation. They often come as whispers, nudges, open doors, and sudden clarity. If you are not paying attention, you can miss what you prayed for. So stay grounded in prayer. Walk with integrity. Refuse the patterns that keep you spiritually heavy. Refuse the complacency that says you can always respond later. Not everything waits forever. Sometimes the moment really is now, and when it is, hesitation becomes expensive. Still, readiness is not about fear. It is about alignment. It is living in such a way that when your name is called, your answer is not delayed by confusion. It is keeping your mind clear enough to recognize direction. It is keeping your soul healthy enough to trust the next step. It is keeping your spirit engaged enough to move when the path opens. And clarity is coming. The fog that has surrounded certain parts of your life may not remain forever. The doubt that had the loudest voice in your head may be losing ground. The questions that kept circling without answers may finally begin to settle. Many believers describe seasons like this as a time when understanding returns. What once felt cloudy becomes obvious. What once felt tangled begins to make sense. You may start seeing why some people left, why some doors stayed closed, why some plans collapsed even though you begged for them to work. With distance comes vision, and with vision comes peace. Not every closed door was loss. Not every delay was punishment. Not every ending was sabotage. Some things had to break so your path could become clear enough to walk. As that clarity grows, connection often follows. The right people begin to appear. Strategic relationships replace draining ones. Divine partnerships feel different from forced networking. They do not require you to shrink. They do not reward pretending. They do not drain your soul to buy a seat at the table. They fit. They strengthen. They sharpen. They unlock. That is why this season may bring alignment with people who carry keys to your next level, not because they are more important than you, but because purpose often advances through connection. Puzzle pieces matter on their own, but they become fully useful when they fit together. In the same way, the right alliance can accelerate what isolated effort could not. And once again, the word over this season is acceleration. Not careless speed, but redeemed timing. Some things that dragged on for years may begin moving quickly, not because the process was pointless, but because the roots are finally deep enough. You may feel as though your inner clock has skipped ahead. Plans begin unfolding. Promises begin resurfacing. What looked stalled begins moving with force. But when that movement starts, obedience matters. You cannot spend the whole moment second-guessing. You cannot stay hidden while praying to be seen. You cannot keep asking for confirmation after the door has already opened. Speed and surrender must work together. The same God who changes the pace can also change your position, but you still have to move when He says move. This is why the season of shrinking back is ending. Waiting for perfect confidence is ending. Waiting for everyone to validate you is ending. You have been called, chosen, and now, in many ways, commissioned. That does not mean you feel fully ready. It means your yes matters more than your resume. Heaven does not choose the way people do. It often looks past polish and sees posture. You may still feel unqualified by human standards. You may still carry memories of fear, grief, insecurity, and doubt. But if you have kept saying yes in the middle of all that, then do not underestimate the power of that yes. It matters. Quiet obedience matters. Tearful obedience matters. Imperfect but sincere surrender matters. Many people never realize how much heaven can do with a heart that remains willing. So this is your moment to stand taller, to speak with greater conviction, to love with less fear, to build with more integrity, to stop treating your purpose like a distant possibility and start treating it like an active assignment. You were not awakened merely to observe. You were awakened to shift atmospheres, to carry presence into rooms that feel empty, to bring steadiness where chaos has ruled. There are seasons, many believers say, when heaven does not merely bless. It restores, it returns, it vindicates. It opens storerooms that seemed sealed. If you are in one of those seasons, then what is being released may include opportunity, healing, peace, provision, justice, and renewed strength. Not scraps, not leftovers. Enough for purpose. Enough for movement. Enough to remind you that delay and denial are not the same thing. Every hidden act of obedience still has weight. Every silent sacrifice. Every prayer prayed when no one else knew how tired you were. Every burden carried without public sympathy. None of it vanished. And now, as timing shifts, you may begin to see the fruit of what was planted in tears. Not by your own striving alone, but by grace meeting faithfulness in the right season. This is not only about material things. It is also about healing where there has been exhaustion, peace where there has been mental noise, restoration where there has been internal fracture, strength where there has been long-term weariness. Many people need to hear this. Abundance is not always flashy. Sometimes it looks like deep rest. Sometimes it looks like clear thinking. Sometimes it looks like freedom from the weight that has followed you for years. And yes, obedience still sits at the center of this story. What you did in private mattered. The prayers, the restraint, the fasts. the times you chose integrity, even when compromise looked easier and more profitable. The moments you stayed true while other people took shortcuts. Those choices shaped you. They built something in you that public attention cannot create. So, if favor begins to find you, stay humble. If recognition comes, stay grounded. If the spotlight turns your direction, do not turn it into ego. Let it become testimony. Let people see that faithfulness still matters. Let them see that surrender was not weakness. Let them see that consistency, character, and conviction still carry weight in a world obsessed with image. Some people of faith speak boldly about resources shifting into the hands of those who will use them well. Whether you describe that as provision, influence, opportunity, or open access, the principle is this: what arrives in your life is not meant to end with you. Legacy thinks beyond self. Purpose thinks beyond appearance. True stewardship always asks, who else can be helped because I handled this well? That is why the language of this season should not be greed. It should be responsibility. Resources may be increasing, not so you can worship success, but so you can build wisely, bless generously, support what matters, and take your place with integrity. If influence grows, let wisdom grow with it. If visibility increases, let humility remain attached to it. The season of being ignored may be ending, and that can be beautiful, but it can also be dangerous if your heart is not anchored. Public elevation can expose what private formation failed to heal. So as your voice gains reach, stay rooted. As doors open, stay teachable. As people begin to value what once went unnoticed, remember who formed you before anyone clapped for you. Honor may come to your name, not because you outperformed everyone else, but because you stayed steady, because you became consistent, because you carried something deeper than charisma. There is a kind of authority that cannot be bought, a kind of wisdom that does not come from image management, a kind of favor that makes little sense to people who only believe in self-promotion. When it shows up, let it produce gratitude, not arrogance. Favor, after all, is not luck in the minds of many believers. It is divine endorsement. It is the mysterious grace that opens doors your credentials alone could not open. It is the protection you cannot fully explain. It is the access that arrives without manipulation. It is the sense that something larger than your hustle is making a way. You may find yourself welcomed where you once expected rejection, chosen when you did not look like the obvious candidate, heard in rooms where your name once carried no weight. Opportunities may arise that appear disproportionate to your resume. That can happen, not because the world suddenly became fair, but because favor does what pure striving cannot always do. And when that happens, stop apologizing for grace. Walk humbly, yes, but do not shrink to make other people comfortable with your elevation. If God opens the door, walk through it. If your name is placed before decision-makers, step up with integrity. If your season changes, do not sabotage it because it arrived differently than you expected. You are not meant to follow forever. At some point, leadership awakens. That holy discomfort in your spirit may not be frustration. It may be the call to lead, not to dominate people, not to chase titles, not to become controlling, but to carry vision, to bring order, to move with courage, to serve with strength, to stand up when others freeze. Real leadership is not about labels. It is about impact. It is about becoming the kind of person others can trust when the room is confused. It is about carrying wisdom without needing to advertise it. It is about remaining anchored when culture shifts and pressure rises. If that is awakening in you, do not dismiss it. Every lesson you have survived may have been shaping the leader hidden inside your pain. You may soon notice that you do not have to force authority the way you used to. It begins to rest on you naturally. People start asking your perspective. They begin seeking your counsel. They recognize steadiness in you that they cannot explain. That is often how leadership matures. Quietly first, clearly later. And perhaps, even now, your name is traveling farther than you know. The work you have done in secret. The faithfulness you thought went unseen. The perseverance you carried through impossible stretches. All of it can reach rooms you have not entered yet. Doors often start opening before you know they exist. Conversations begin before you hear your name mentioned. That is part of how alignment works. So be ready for connections that do not feel forced. Tables you did not beg to sit at. Invitations that arrive at the right time. People who recognize your value without needing you to perform for approval. Let those moments come, but carry them with responsibility. Favor without character is dangerous. Opportunity without humility is unstable. Influence without service becomes empty. Remember, too, that every delay you have lived through did something in you. It refined you. It tested your motives. It deepened your roots. Like gold in fire, your faith, your endurance, your character were being shaped under pressure. So now, if abundance begins to rise, receive it with understanding. It is not always random. Sometimes it is the harvest of a long season of hidden formation, and that abundance may touch every area of life, not just finances. Peace can overflow. Joy can return. Health can stabilize. Purpose can become clearer. Relationships can be restored. The blessing may be broad, not narrow. It may show up in your home, your mind, your body, your calling, and your future. It may feel like a river finally reaching dry ground. Hold on to this truth. The delay was not necessarily denial. Often it was development. Often it was timing. Often it was protection. And when overflow comes, it is not only meant to relieve your own need, it can also position you to bless other people. People who are still where you once were. People who need proof that endurance was worth it. You may be entering a season where lack is no longer the defining story, where multiplication begins replacing survival mode, where breakthroughs seem to come from directions you did not expect, where old, closed doors begin opening with unusual ease, where practical needs begin getting met in ways that restore your faith as much as your circumstances. That may include finances. It may include paid bills, lifted pressure, wise opportunities, and fresh streams of provision. But it may also include relational healing, family tension easing, old wounds being addressed, friendships mended, peace returning to places that had been marked by misunderstanding and pain. Restoration does not always arrive in one form. Sometimes heaven heals on multiple levels at once. This next chapter may feel like a reset. Spirit, soul, and body all coming into better alignment. not instant perfection, but real renewal. Strength returning. Joy becoming less fragile. Hope feeling believable again. Your story may be preparing to turn, and the chapter ahead may carry more light than the one behind you. Momentum may also begin to change. What felt like constant resistance may start feeling smoother, not because effort disappears, but because unnecessary obstacles are removed. Progress may stop feeling like uphill battle and start feeling like steady movement. The right people arrive faster. The right opportunities become clearer. The energy you spend begins producing more fruit. This is what some believers call divine acceleration. The wind at your back instead of in your face. Resistance lifting. Alignment increasing. Time seeming to compress. What once crawled forward may begin moving in months or weeks instead of years. But even then, wisdom matters. Fast movement is still a stewardship. Stay aligned. Stay clean in heart. Stay attentive. Move with God, not just excitement. And now hear this clearly. Your story is not ending where people thought it would. The rejection was not the final sentence. The doors slammed in your face were not the whole narrative. The dreams dismissed by others were not foolish simply because they were delayed. A reversal is possible. What looked closed can open. What sounded like no can become yes. What seemed barren can begin to flow. The language of Scripture has always carried this kind of hope. Isaiah speaks of God doing a new thing, making a way in dry places. Ephesians reminds us that God can work beyond what we dare ask or imagine. Matthew calls people to ask, seek, and knock with expectation. Joshua calls the fearful to courage because God remains present on the journey. These are not just ancient lines to admire. For many believers, they remain living anchors. So if this message stirs something in you, do not dismiss it. If it touches a place you have been trying to protect, pay attention. If it puts language to the restlessness you could not explain, receive that as information. If it calls you higher, do not answer it halfway. Let your yes be real. Let your alignment be intentional. Let this become more than emotion. Let it become response. This is your invitation to rise in identity, not in arrogance, to walk in purpose, not performance, to carry peace into chaos, to bring heaven's wisdom into earthly spaces, to become fully awake to what God may be doing in and through you. The world does not need a smaller version of who you were called to be. It needs the healed, steady, courageous version that has gone through the fire and still chose faith. So, prepare yourself. Position yourself. Move when the door opens. The hour may be closer than you think. The shift may already be underway. And the version of you that emerges from this season may look nothing like the one that entered it.